what's called a suppressive person, which would be me. Like a real-life prick. As an example, when I was 70 years old, David and my 2 daughters bought me a car. Okay? A car. When I was 75 years old, my daughter sent me 75 gifts. Now I left. Now I'm the worst father who's ever lived. I'm a slimeball. They character assassinate me on their hate sites. Mm-hmm. They would give a car to somebody who was that bad. Oh, we made a mistake. He really was a prick all along. It doesn't make sense. So if you're trying to make sense out of it, it doesn't make sense. But this is built into the policy of Scientology. Anybody who leaves could be and says anything about the church could be considered to be a suppressive person.
And was this always the case, or has this been policy, exacerbated?
No. Well, L. Ron Hubbard wrote the policies while he was alive.
He also wrote more fiction than anybody that's ever lived.
Yeah.
Does everybody know that inside the church?
They probably do, yeah.
But didn't they? Does anybody make that connection?
No. No.
The guy wrote more fake shit than any person that's ever walked the face of the earth, but he also had the time to talk to the aliens to get all this data.
Yeah.
To write this real stuff. That's a suspension of disbelief that defies logic.
Well, as I said,
defies understanding.
Yeah, look, as I said earlier,
maybe I just need to get to a higher OTC. What is it? Is that it?
OT levels.
OT
level, operating Thetan levels.
Oh, okay.
But you got to understand, most people who do it don't have rocks in their head. They're not nuts. They're not stupid people.
No, I had a neighbor who's a Scientologist, a very nice guy.
Yeah.
And he sort of fit that bill that I was talking about earlier. Sure, go ahead.
Grab the water.
He fit that bill that I was talking about earlier, where he's a guy that's always improving himself. He's healthy, exercised, he's well kept. He was a nice neighbor. He's a good guy. And, I was like, all right. I sort of looked into Scientology after I became friends with him. I got the book early on, like I said, but I never really did anything other than read the book. I never looked into this is before the internet.
Yeah.
The internet sort of exposed all this stuff.
That was the end of it.
Yeah.
That literally is the end of Scientology.
And how much has it dropped off since then?
Well, it's been estimated by people who would know that there's maybe 20,000 Scientologists right now.
What was it at its peak?
I think it was in the early 90s, about 100,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
20,000. That's like a good Louis C.K. concert.
Well, the thing is, most people, like at that international base, are people who have been around for 25, 30, 35, 40 years.
Right.
And you think, okay, how could you live this way? Look, most people are not going to do what I do. I was 76 years old when I left, okay?
And you were 75 when they gave you 75 gifts. So you're like, this is not enough. I got to get the fuck out of here. I need...
No. You mean not enough gifts? I should have gotten 76, right? Yeah. Listen, I was this... Well, actually, I'll tell you something that happened, and I brought this just to show you, and you have a little...
What is that? It's a
Kindle.
Okay. Are you allowed to have those in there?
No.
Really? You can't have a Kindle?
And I didn't know why. I didn't know why. What happened is this. David gave me this Kindle.
And he's like, shh.
And the security guards were doing their nut trying to get it away from me. But they wouldn't come and strong-arm me because David is the man.
So David gave it to you, and the security guards were trying to take it away from you. Why?
Okay, I didn't know.
Did you tell him it was loaded up with L. Ron Hubbard books?
Well, it was. No, it was his fiction books that he put in there for me.
Battlefield Earth?
No, not Battlefield Earth, nor Mission Earth. But the other earlier fiction was on here.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was pretty interesting. But anyway, they're trying to get this. Says, hey, fuck you, man. Dave gave me this. This is mine, you know. Oh, okay, Ron. They'd back off. Now, one day, I'm reading something, and there's a feature on here where you see this. Is the camera on that now?
Yeah.
Okay. You see this little switch here?
Mm-hmm.
That goes this way, up, down, and in. So if you got a word that you'd like to look up and get the meaning of, you'd go to the library, or not the library, the dictionary, and you'd select the word and press it to the right, and it would say search store. I accidentally held it a little bit too long, and it went right past search store to Google. I was on the internet with no filter.
With your Kindle.
With my Kindle. What the fuck is
You
this?
didn't even know about the Google back then?
I knew about the Google, but there was filter on all their
But
computers.
you could go through it with
There's
that.
no filter on this.
Wow.
And that's why the security guards were trying to get it. But they wouldn't tell me that. Obviously, they're not going to say, well, there's no filter so you can get on the internet. I mean, these guys weren't that swift. They weren't the sharpest knives in the drawer, but
how did they know then? How did they know about that feature?
they're the ones who, if you get a computer, you give it to them, they put a filter on it, and then they give it back to you.
Oh, okay. So they just never...
So they got some techno geeks who knew how to do that shit.
But they had never done that to the Kindle.
But they wanted to. Well, they
Okay.
wanted to take it away
So
from me,
did you
straight
start
up.
Googling stuff with your Kindle?
I looked at Google. Now, this is the first time I told this story, by the way, Joe. This is an exclusive, you know.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things I looked at was like L. Ron Hubbard's war record. He was not a hero. He didn't have 2 Purple Hearts. It's a fucking made-up story.
Yeah.
And there was a girl named Annie Tidman who was with L. Ron Hubbard when he died. Annie Tidman was a messenger with L. Ron Hubbard since she was a little girl. And she was with him when he actually died. So Annie was a long-term, loyal Scientologist. She's at the base where I lived in Hammett, and she got lung cancer. So they sent her to Los Angeles to get care, and they sent a girl down to be like a personal servant to take care of her needs so she'd be okay. So occasionally I would say to Martine, who's the medical liaison officer, in other words, she took care of our health and she'd have us go to the doctors and stuff. I said, Martine, how's Annie doing? Oh, Ronnie, she's doing great. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm on a Kindle. She died 6 months earlier. Never told anybody on the base. Now we're living in these apartments on the base. This is several days later. And there was a building called a laundry room where you took your clothes to get cleaned and pressed. You picked up sheets, little amenities like that. And there's 2 girls outside the laundry room. And they said, Ronnie, would you want to chip in for a birthday present for Annie? I said, nah, I'm going to pass on it now. And I thought, Jesus Christ. They either know and they're keeping up the ruse, or they don't know and they're being used as shills to make sure people think she's still alive.
Right.
Well, that was a major thing for me. I then started to think, I got to get out of here. Mind you, I thought earlier things were starting to go south, and we would have... I'll give you an example. Here's what happened. We're on the ship, and we're playing for a show at one of these maiden voyages, anniversary things. And we have a guy there who's... No, he's not a rap artist, but he's like a beatbox, you know? He can use his voice like that, you know?
Yeah.
So now Dougie's up there, and then he starts saying, he says, I'll tell you, my kid was picked up by the cops the other day, but he's not really a bad kid, He's hanging out with the wrong guys and blah, blah, blah. And he's all saying this shit that you don't say to this exclusive audience. David hears that. To handle this, me and the rest of the band were sent to work in the bilges on the ship. Because he fucked up, we paid the price. What I should have done was kicked in the band, because I was directing the band, kicked in the band and start playing the music and drowned them out. You go in a bilge, the temperature down there is between 125 and 130 degrees. I'm in my 60s. It doesn't matter. Shit like that would go on. So when things like that would happen, I thought, man, we can't live this way. But my wife, Becky, she is an eternal optimist. She would always say, Ron, it's going to get better. It can't keep on going this way. And I'd say, Becky, listen, if you see a boulder rolling down a mountain, that boulder is not going to stop and start rolling up. It's going to get worse. If things are going bad, they have a tendency to continue going bad.
It's just fantastic to me that you found out all this information on Google.
Yeah.
And that you were shielded from all this stuff.
Yeah.
That's the craziest part. And you were 75 at the time? Somewhere in that range?
When I was in my 70s in that time. I think it was 2 years later that we actually escaped.
So how did you escape?
Well, first of all, I used to run the music department. And when I say run it, I'd make sure we did all the jobs we were supposed to do. And I would compose music. I worked with a guy by the name of Peter Schless. And we had some nice shit that we did together.
So at this point, you'd been in for how many years? 40 years?
No,
50?
in the C organization over 20-some years.
20-something years in the C organization,
Yeah.
and all in all, Scientology, much more than that.
Yeah, well, I was in Scientology for 42 years.
And this is your only source of income?
Yeah, it's 50. Well, to begin with, when I got in, we got $30 a week. And then...
Generous.
What's that?
Generous.
Well, it went up to
$30.
50. It went up to 50
Ooh,
then.
it's a big raise.
When you got paid.
When you got paid.
When you got paid.
didn't.
Sometimes you go for months without getting paid at all. Now, the downside of that is you ain't paying much into Social Security. So if you leave, like some of these people who leave, they got shit for Social Security. They may have no place to go, no marketable skill, no car. What are they going to do?
Right.
So that people
So they
say,
just
well,
stay.
They stay. They gut it out.
And that's in the position that you were in. What made you decide?
Okay. Well,
Just the Google information?
no,
More?
it was the treatment, the way people were being treated, and some of the shit that went down. Like,
So would you been okay if they treated you well, and you still found
No,
out that
if-
that woman had been dead for 6 months, that L. Ron Hubbard wasn't really a war hero?
no, but I'll tell you what. If they had been actually disseminating this information, and people on this planet were doing better, and life was becoming better for large numbers of people, I don't know if I still might be there. In other words,
So
if you could do something where
Scientology
you
was really being effective and doing what you thought it was supposed to do,
precisely,
which is help humanity.
precisely.
Do you think that at the core that its potential to help humanity is still there? You think that like
No.
you were saying that the beginning stages of Scientology are beneficial and there is
Yeah.
something
Like if they got all these beneficial things
Yeah.
and just offered those. The odds of that happening, the odds now I'm
Right.
talking about, would be the same odds as me turning into a penguin right now. It's not likely to happen.
not so likely.
Not very likely. Maybe,
And your son, he's going to be running it forever?
there's absolutely nobody who's going to take over.
Is it election? Like, how does
There's
it
no
work?
fucking election. He runs it, and that's the end of it. He's surrounded by people, I guess you'd call them sycophants or sycophants,
Sycophants, yeah.
who just pump him up all the time. And if he says, I would like to have such and such, maybe he might want a different car, they'll go out and get it for him.
What are those people like? What are the people like that surround him that enable him to maintain this power?
They feel that he's a power source, and they support him.
A power source because he runs the organization?
Well, yeah, because he got his tax exemption.
Mm-hmm.
He'll do things. He's tough. He's actually, David is a very smart guy. If it weren't for this streak in him where he attained all this power and had this shit going on in Scientology, who knows? I think he could be successful at anything.
Well, I believe that as well. I think anybody who gets to, it's really unfortunate, but anybody gets to even a position of being like a drug kingpin, like
Yeah.
Pablo Escobar, I'm sure he could have been successful at other things
You're
had
right,
he
Joe.
decided to focus his mind in that direction.
You're exactly right, and that's how I feel.
So you feel like your son just fucked up in getting on a path that is, in your eyes, illegitimate versus, him being a
Yeah,
CEO of IBM or something like that.
You could say that. You could say that, and I'll tell you, I think you would be correct. Not I think, you would be.
Have you ever talked to him about Scientology?
You don't bring it up.
You don't bring it up.
No, look, take anybody with that much power. Do you think you can sit down and say, now look, what I think is, what the fuck are you talking to me about? I'm running this fucking show,
Yeah, but if it's your dad, I would think you would just sit
I didn't
down.
have that line with him. I'm telling you.
No.
Listen, if you're a Scientologist and you're at that level, you are of the belief that no spiritual being is another spiritual being's mother or father or daughter or sister. You happen to be occupying a body that maybe was given to you by another person, but in your heart, you're actually an independent thinking life unit, an immortal one to boot, okay?
Right. Okay, but let me ask you this. Do people really believe that, or do they just kind of go along with it because everybody else is going along with it? Is there ever a time where you're alone with somebody else in the Sea Org, or maybe you're setting up some video or something like that, and someone goes, hey, man, Is this shit on the up and up?
Very seldom.
Very seldom, but what?
Well,
when
I'll tell
it
you
does
why,
happen,
though. I'll tell you why.
The walls have ears?
Oh, fuck no.
Well,
You're telling this to somebody, they might write a knowledge report on you.
a knowledge report.
Now you're in deep shit, okay?
Jamie, I'm writing a knowledge report
Now-
as soon as we leave here.
Okay, listen.
Okay.
You might laugh, but boy, when it's happened, it's
I'm
serious
sure.
shit.
Listen, I'm sure.
And if it's found out later that he said this to you and you didn't write a knowledge report, you are as culpable as he is for saying
And
that.
what happens to you? Somebody writes a
You
knowledge
go in for interrogation.
Oh, what do they do? They talk to you?
Sit you down in a meter. Tell you what are your
Oh.
crimes. What evil purpose do you have toward David? What evil purpose do you have toward L. Ron Hubbard? What thoughts have you had about leaving? What thoughts have you had about destroying the organization? Anything of a harmful nature.
But what if you say, man, fuck this place? What do they kick you out?
No.
So
No,
how's
you-
that work? What if you get there? What if someone writes a knowledge report and you go, you know what, man? I've been thinking. I got on Google. I started reading a bunch of stuff. I think it's all bullshit. I don't even want to be here anymore, man. And
Yeah.
fuck all this working for $50 a week. This is stupid. I don't want to do this anymore. Why are we all doing this? Why don't we just take the beginning parts of this and just get rid of all the stupid shit about separating from your children and make this thing better? What do you say? What would they do to you?
Well, first of all, you wouldn't dare do that if you were at a place like I was at the international base, okay, which is Golden Era Productions in Hammett, California.
Why? What would they do to you?
They'd seize you,
And then what happens?
and you'd be sequestered from the rest of the group, put into a place where you weren't associating with the rest of the group.
Right.
You'd go to lunch at a different time. You'd have a security guard watching you morning, afternoon, and night.
And you can never leave?
So, that's right.
What
Somebody
if
would,
you what if you say, I just want to go home. I want to get out of here. I want to go get an apartment somewhere.
can't do it, man. You just can't do it.
So
You'd
they
be
would just-
kept. It'd fucking physically keep you.
It physically hold
Physically
you down.
hold you back.
Like
hold
put you in
back.
a jail. They put
Yeah,
you in a
listen,
jail.
and if the church, well, I'm sure they're going to hear this, but they're going to say, "Oh, Ron could have left anytime he could." That's bullshit. That's complete bullshit. If I would have been caught what I was trying to leave, which I'm going to get into, I didn't
Okay.
forget we were talking about
Okay.
that. If I would have been caught, they would have taken me and Becky, taken the keys to my car. I would have been sequestered from her. She'd been sequestered from me. We would have both been security checked. Sit down with the hands on an e-meter, which I'm
Right.
sure you know what is.
Yeah, I
right?
did one of those once.
Okay.
I don't really think it works.
You don't think it works? No. Sometimes it does.
Okay.
But that's not the point. You'd
Okay.
sit down with that and be interrogated. And then you'd work maybe 4 or 5 hours away at some manual labor. And when you weren't doing that, you'd be back on the cans again, as they say.
What if you don't work? What if you're like, fuck you, I don't want to work?
Yeah, like a difficult bastard, right?
Yeah, like what's ever happened? Has anybody ever rebelled? I mean, it's human nature to rebel against authority.
Yeah,
There's a
but
certain amount of human nature to succumb, but
when you're up at a place where you have 300 or 400 people who feel differently,
Right.
you're not that brave,
But
okay?
does anybody ever have the gumption or the notion to go, hey, what the fuck are we doing? Does that ever happen?
Okay, maybe. Well, no. What they do is they escape, like I did.
That's it?
Yeah.
They don't speak up?
Well, if
Because
they
of the
speak up,
knowledge
they know what they're in
reports?
for.
Right.
They know what they're in for. Here, there was a guy named Alex. He wanted to route out. It took him 4 fucking years to route out.
Route out?
That's what they call it. That's the proper way to leave, where you sit down and you do this routing for him. It's basically security checking you till you're, for years.
So once you, say if you sign a 5-year contract, is
Yeah.
that what you said? Is that
A 5-year
possible?
contract, you would be at an outer org. There, you just walk out of the fucking place. And people do that.
An outer org. But you can't do that at the Sea Org.
Well, you could in Los Angeles, but at the international base, you're living on a compound. Mm-hmm. You're surrounded with barbed wire, pointing in and pointing out. You're not
Right.
going to jump that fence, or you'll really screw yourself
I understand.
up.
But if you say if you sign a 5-year contract, when the 5th year's up, you get to leave?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're going to try to get you to re-enlist. Okay, but if you're let's say you're working at one of the organizations in L.A. Okay,
Okay.
you can walk out in the street and say, "Hey, see you later." What are they going
Right.
to do?
Because you're in the free world.
You're in the free world. You're
not
not
in a
in the free
compound.
world at the international base.
I understand.
All right.
So you had to plot some sort of an out. So you had to think about it, and then you had to work with the wife, and you guys had to like hush hush.
Right, and you asked me what led to that. Well, there's one major thing that led to it, and that was this. we got a new music director. I didn't want to have the post anymore. I was getting old and got this young guy. And I would write melodies all day, all week, months. Every melody I ever wrote was rejected by him. In other words, everything I was doing was a piece of shit, but I couldn't quit.
So this new guy was not fun to work with.
Terrible. It was terrible.
And you couldn't
Yet listen, I was the only one who had gotten a recording contract on my own steam. Nobody gave it to me. I didn't have a rich daddy or something. A contract with Chappell's Publishing for my writing, and asked to play on the BBC. Nobody had achieved that in that department. Now, maybe my skills weren't up to how they write modern music, and I used to beg him. I said, listen, what do you want as an acceptable particle? I'm a trained musician. Give me some ideas what you want, and I'll start writing that. Fuck you, learn it just like I did. This is how I was treated.
Well, it doesn't sound like a fun time. So
wait
you
a
couldn't
minute.
talk to your son and say, hey, kid, listen, this fucking new guy sucks.
Wait a minute. I did that. I called him, and I didn't call him. I wrote to him. I said, Dave, you got to get together with me.
Right.
So we got together. I said, look, I'm working all day long, and nothing I'm doing is being approved. You got to get me a different job. I says, I don't care if you get me a job waxing cars in Motorpool, but I want to do something so at the end of the day, you can say, here's what he did. Okay. You know?
Right, I get it.
He says, I'll look into it. He never looked into it. A couple months later, I said to Becky, look, we're getting the fuck out of here. Then we started planning.
So what was your plan as far as like getting a job? Because you had been working there for 25 years?
Well, I'm a good musician. I'm not just a punk. I mean, I play quite a bit of jobs in Milwaukee.
So you had skills.
I have skills. Oh, yeah. I'm a good salesman, too, you know. I also... Here's how I look.
Okay.
I'm 76 years old. I want to spend the rest of my life suffering out every day. Fuck this.
Right.
I'm getting out of here, okay?
Right. Got it.
And Becky finally says, okay. And she saw the writing on the wall that it wasn't going to get better.
Right.
So now... we don't want to leave everything behind, because what little possessions we had was what we had. All right? So we started... by the way, I mentioned a little earlier that my daughter sent me 75 gifts on my 75th birthday, right?
Yeah.
Becky came up with the idea. My mother is going to celebrate. By the way, my wife's younger than me. My first wife, I divorced from and married a much younger woman. So her mother is going to have her 70th birthday. So we decided to send her mother 70 gifts. Now, in order to do this, it has to go through the security guards. So we would send her like a detailing kit for a car. I mean, her chances of detailing a car as a gift were nil to none. But they saw that, okay, we're sending her 70 gifts, so it got through them. We sent her our L. Ron Hubbard library books that we had, some other things, and we got a lot of stuff out of there that I couldn't fit in the car when we were going.
Ah.
You see what I'm saying?
Smart.
And then, after all was said and done, when we got everything out of there, we plotted it out. And I did this on Sunday mornings. On Sunday mornings, you had breakfast at 9 o'clock. Now, we lived on the southern side of the base. And we lived in rooms. You couldn't have a refrigerator. You couldn't have a coffee maker there. But across the street, on the north side, I worked in the studio. There was a refrigerator there. And I used to keep like Italian salami, maybe supersat, some Parmesan cheese, Romano cheese. So early Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and I planned this out because there's two gates. There's one main gate where there's a security guard sitting in a booth, and then down the road about 200 yards, there's another gate where there's a little camera, and they see you coming. And they got used to me going across to the north side to go to the studio, and I'd come back through the main gate and bring the security guards a piece of cheese or salami. So they thought, hey, Sunday morning he's going to get his goodies. In other words, I'm feeding the watchdogs. This is set up.
Right.
All right? So comes the day we're going to leave, March 25th, 2012. We get up real early, and I had a little notebook. I must have checked it 20 times, what I wanted to take, what I wanted to leave behind. Like the night before. And by the way, my biggest cover on being able to get out of there was the fact that I was 76 years old, and I was the father of the chairman of the board. Nobody would suspect that I was going to leave unauthorizedly. All right?
Okay.
So I'm out with a mesh bag full of shoes, putting it in the car, and one of the security guards come by on his bicycle, an Italian guy, Sal. Hey, Ronnie, how you doing? Good, And he sees me putting this in, but he justifies it in his mind. Oh, he's putting stuff in his car.
Right.
Doesn't think twice why I'm doing it.
Of course.
Another guy's coming by, an old-time Scientologist. I have a bag of clothes I'm putting in the car. Ronnie, how's it going? Good deal, Norm. Yeah. All right, put it in the car. So we got through all that.
Okay.
So now, Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, we get in the car, we're loaded up, and we're driving down. To get to that second gate is about a half mile down the road. We go there, and I'm going past our mess hall where we would eat, and this is called Massacre Canyon Inn, or MCI. It's where the crew would eat their meals. And I see the chase car. Like on Sunday morning, there's only 2 security guards on duty. One is in the main booth, and the other one is in a car so he can rove. And it's called the chase car.
Okay.
So the chase car is parked outside of the mess hall. I knew Sal was in there. So I go around another 100 yards down the road, get to the gate, and by the way, at this point, my heart is in my throat, all right? Because when I hit that buzzer, if Jurgen would have said, come up to the booth, that was it. I was fucked.
Okay.
Hit the buzzer, didn't say anything, the gate opens. I pulled out of the gate. It says, Becky, we're turning left. So I turned left, jammed the throttle, and I knew I had to make it down to these. There's 3 roads. One goes to Route 60. Straight ahead, rather. The other one goes to Route 10, and if I turn left, I go into Hammett. I knew by the time I'm going down the road, and he would be trying to get me on the next tail. Ron, what the hell are you doing? Then he'd call Sal. Sal, get up to the booth, pronto. I know Sal would have to run out, get in the car. I'd already be at those crossroads, or the 3 roads. So I knew when Sal came, he'd either turn right or go straight ahead. I turned left, went into Hammett. We hit the boondocks, and I was free.
Wow. So what did you do then?
We drove to Wisconsin.
Did you have money on you?
Yeah, I had money on me, and I paid for everything cash, Joe.
You only getting $50 a week. How long did you save money?
Well, I was also getting Social Security, so I would salt that away. All right, very low amount, by the way, because
you weren't making much money.
Yeah, it's just bullshit.
Right.
But anyway, I paid for gas with cash. We ate for cash. We stayed at a motel 2 nights. Paid cash
because you couldn't use your credit cards because they'd be able to track you.
Exactly.
So when you finally surfaced, how'd you surface?
I went to her mother's place.
And then what happens then? Did they try to get you?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, here's what happens. No, believe me.
Do they try to bring you back? Look, Ron, it's been a big misunderstanding.
Oh, here's how it went. About 2 weeks later, we're sitting in her mother's house, and it's a split level where there's an upstairs and downstairs in the kitchen. The window is almost level with the ground. You know how a split level goes? And I'm looking out the window. We're having breakfast coffee. And I see this girl outside, Marion. And I thought, fuck, okay, they found me. So I went through the garage outside, and there's Greg Woolhair. And he says, Ronnie, I guess you're surprised it took us so long to get here. Ha, ha, ha. We thought you were going to go to Lori's place. We never thought you'd come here. Ha, ha, ha. Like nothing happened,
Right.
So he says, okay. So I says, Greg, listen, you're just wasting your time. I'm not going back. And he says, Ron, I says, hey, I don't want to live that life, man. It was a terrible fucking life. I'm not doing it again. He says, you blew. That's a term they use if you leave without authorization. And he pulled out this policy. It's called Leaving and Leaves. And what it says
Leaving and Leaves?
Leaving and Leaves. That's the name of it. And what it says in there substantially is this. The only reason a person leaves a group is because they have committed harmful acts against the group. And they want to remove themselves so they don't keep on committing harmful acts against the group.
How convenient.
No shit.
You can't just leave because you want to leave. You have to be a
or
bad
the fact
guy.
that, you're working maybe 12, 14, 16 hours a day, sometimes not going to sleep for 3 days.
But you got that raise to $50 a week.
I shouldn't have done it.
It's a nice raise. So when do you do then? When you say you're not going back?
Well, they try to convince me, and it got to the point. It says, guys, you're wasting your time. I am not going back. And I went in town and I saw them a couple times, and they says, come on, we'll take you out to a nice place to eat. We'll take you to a movie. Like they're going to schmooze me into going back to live that life. Greg says to me, Ronnie, look, You can go to Flag. You'll have your own apartment. You have a kitchen. We know you like to cook. And then you can train some of the guys how to sell. You can play with the band down there. I said, Greg, you're out of your fucking mind. You get me down there, it's going to be the same thing. No, it won't, Ronnie. It went on.
So do you think they were just trying to bullshit you? Like
Not do I think. Absolutely.
So if you got there, there'd be no apartment. They'd punish you, write out a knowledge report. You can't do this.
Yeah.
Why do they want you to stay? Why do they give a fuck if you leave? That's
because
what I don't
I
understand.
would be what they consider to be a sensitive particle. Like these guys that
Sensitive
were following
particle?
me.
A particle?
Well, here's what I mean by that. Like Dwayne Powell and Daniel Powell. Well, I was the father of the chairman of the board.
Right.
That's a blight. I mean...
Did you ever talk to your son after this?
I tried to call him once. I tried to call him after I found out the PIs were following me, and after I heard that you got on the phone and said, if he dies, let him die. Don't intervene. Don't do anything.
This is what you heard, right?
You can hear it, too. You can
go
on
recording?
Tony Ortega's, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Tony Ortega, Underground Bunker, and you can hear these interviews, okay?
Okay.
They're as public as you're going to get.
But you don't hear his actual words?
No.
Okay. So
but
it's
there'd
really
be
just
no
hearsay?
reason that this guy would make up that story.
Yeah,
because,
but people do make things up, right?
Well, okay, let's put it this way.
But I'm just playing devil's advocate
You
here.
can play devil's advocate. The father was interrogated to begin with. He told the same story. The son came in later, didn't have a chance to talk to his father, told the same story.
Okay. So you haven't had a chance to talk to your son?
I called, and an attorney got on the phone and said, Ron, David won't talk to you. He doesn't feel he could trust you.
Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
As a father, because I'm a father and you're a father, the idea of being estranged from your kids in that way, where your kid hates you and your kid doesn't want anybody to save you if you die, do you feel any remorse? Do you feel like in any way you fucked up? Do you ever look at your life and go, how did I lose my connection with my son?
Listen, it's written in policy to do what David did. There's a policy that says, listen, somebody who leaves...
I understand that entirely, but I'm talking about as a human being. As a human being.
As a human being, I thought it was terrible because we had a good life together.
But do you feel any responsibility? Do you feel like there's anything you could have done differently?
Not get him in Scientology.
That's it? So you feel like once he got into Scientology, it's not your fault?
He lives his life. He's the one who got the power to do all these things.
I understand, but you raised him, right? I mean, whatever connection and bond that you developed with him.
We had a great life together when he was growing up, too.
That didn't carry forth in some way? You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously, I'm not in Scientology, and obviously, I was not in your situation.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine that you must have gone over it and looked at your communications with him and wondered if maybe if you extended yourself more, if you talked more, is there something you could have done that would have prevented any of this?
Joe, you're dreaming. I don't mind telling you that, okay?
Please do.
I'm doing it with all respect, okay? Because you do good interviews. I've seen you do other interviews, and I'm happy you got me on the show. No, I couldn't have done anything different except maybe not get him in Scientology.
So you feel like
once he got the power,
that was
listen. There's policy that L. Ron Hubbard wrote, and David loved L. Ron Hubbard, and he applies the policy to a T.
Does David believe all that stuff? Does he believe?
Well, he's got to. There's a policy called fair game. Are you familiar with that?
No. What's that?
Fair game. If somebody goes against the church or talks out against the church, and they're declared a suppressive person. He can be lied to, tricked to, and destroyed with no punishment on the person who did it.
But that's not what I mean. What I mean is the really crazy stuff, like the stuff that sounds like science fiction about like the Thetans and dropping them in a volcano and the hydrogen bomb and all that stuff. Does everybody believe that stuff?
I think a lot of people do believe it.
Is it discussed?
No, you don't discuss that.
No one discusses it.
No one discusses it.
So when you're sitting around the Sea Org...
But no, let's get back to what's pertinent to this, and that's the policy, how to operate as a group. That one, the fair game policy, is written. And by the way, just to satisfy you, I'll send you soft copies if you can give me your email.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, here's another one. If a person does this, find or manufacture data about the person.
Okay, so once you've become their enemy,
they're going to fucking ruin you.
You left them. You're the dad of the chairman of the board. You're a sensitive particle. You got a real problem.
That's right.
Okay. So
That's
you
right.
said they took out a bunch of different website addresses. Like,
Not a bunch, 500. In other words, they got 500 iterations of my name, variations. So no matter what you put in, and by the way, I have a website which I just did, and it's called therealronmiscavige.com.
Okay.
And you could see my website. But if you put any other thing in there, you're going to get a hate site that tells you things about me that you think I was the worst person who ever lived.
Did you write this book? What was the motivation? Did you want to make money? Or
No,
did
absolutely not. I wanted to help.
But you did
more.
make money, right? You made some money.
Yeah, but that isn't the reason of writing a book. The reason to
That's
write
the
it
only
is,
reason I'd write a book.
well, not me.
Pocahontas outfit on, people get mad at you?
No, anybody can salute another person. You might see somebody going off from the plane and say, "Hey, have a good trip."
Yeah,
man."
but you would do it like almost in
Throwaway.
tongue-in-cheek, a
Yeah.
jest. Hey, you
A
fucking
throwaway,
animal,
yeah.
you, I love you.
Okay, so
Right?
the Sea Organization is a military-type organization, and you would salute people in the military.
But it's just
right?
non-ironic saluting outside
Yeah.
of the military. It just seems awful odd.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things odd about it, but for whatever reason, it's kept on going.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why. That man right there, Tom Cruise.
oh yeah.
People look at him and go, this guy's in it. He's a winner.
Well, now here's what L. Ron Hubbard said: that we should get celebrities in because they are opinion leaders. And what do you do with an opinion leader? You want to be like that person.
Right.
And if an opinion leader is a Scientologist, well, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try out Scientology.
What's John Travolta like?
Very nice guy.
Seems like a nice guy. I
He
met
is
him
a
once.
nice guy. He's literally a nice guy. And
So there's something those guys are getting out of it.
yeah, John Travolta and Kirstie Alley and people like that,
Yeah.
they get auditing and they get pampered and they don't have to follow money rules.
So for them,
So
it's
it's a
almost like
different-
they're a part of like a gang or something.
You're in a clique.
You're in a
let's
clique.
face it,
Okay.
you know?
You're in
And
a
it just-
clique. Everybody kisses your ass. It's nice.
Nobody wants to piss you off. If
Right.
you get pissed off, like Leah, well, with Leah, she saw shit go on, and Shelley was not there with David when they were at Tom Cruise's wedding, and she said to Tommy Davis, "Where's Shelley?" And Tommy Davis says, "Listen, you don't have the fucking rank to ask that question."
Ooh, you got to get a higher rank? I thought
Well,
she
that was
like
a figure
OT,
of speech.
whatever.
No, that was
Oh.
a figure of speech.
Okay.
If he would have said, "Look, Shelley's off doing a correction program. That's why she's not here," Leah might still be in Scientology.
Oh, so a correction program is Shelley fucked up?
That's right. And everybody in Scientology knows sometimes Sea Org member isn't seeing. If you say, well, doing a correction program, they'd go, oh, okay. And that would be it.
So the mistake was they disrespected Leah. And
They
she's very fiery.
Not a little bit, really fiery.
Yeah.
She's from Brooklyn.
She's very fiery.
She's a great person, too.
Yeah.
I tell you. You know how I met Leah?
How'd you meet her?
I was in Celebrity Center in what's called the President's Office, and I was there for some event many years ago.
Is there an election?
No.
So how does someone get to be president?
No, it's just you're given the post of the president of that organization.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just granted. Now, Leah comes walking out of this room, and she said, "I got the part." I said, "What do you mean you got the part?" She says, "I got the part." I says, "Who are you?" She says, "My name is Leah. I got the part in this new show called The King of Queens." Hey, congratulations. I gave her a hug. That's how I met her. The day she got the part. And we've been good buddies ever since.
I met her real close to that time as well.
Yeah?
I'm good buddies with Kevin James.
Oh,
And Kevin James was, obviously the lead of the King of Queens, and he's a stand-up comic. We came up together. And, I'd always, I was like, what is she, a Scientologist or something? He's like, yeah, she's all focused. She does all the Scientology shit. He goes, get the fuck out. He goes,
yeah, but he's a funny man.
He's a very funny
He's
guy.
a very funny
He's
guy.
hilarious.
Yeah.
And he just was like, oh, I don't know what the fuck's going on. And that was it. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't talk about it. She didn't talk about it.
I know. And the show went on no matter what.
Yeah.
They're
Well, it's a
both
great show.
professionals. Oh,
Great show.
I enjoy it, and I've watched very little TV, but that was a show, and I could pick it up any time and watch it. Another thing I can watch is the Eagles beating the Giants meltdown at the Meadowlands. I don't know, you ever see that?
No.
Well, the Eagles are down 3 touchdowns. They come back and win in the last 13 seconds. I'm originally from Pennsylvania.
Okay, you reminiscing now? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah. A little change of pace,
Okay.
to break the tension here,
I understand. There's no tension.
I know that.
So listen, Ron, good luck with this book. It's called Ruthless. People can get it everywhere. I'm an eternal optimist, and I would hope that one day you'd be able to speak to your kids, and one day you'd be able to speak to your son, and everybody could work this out. But
I would hope for the same thing, and I guess I'm starting to lose hope on that matter because the years are going by now. I've been out for like 5 years, and I don't know what's going to change it other than maybe enough people speaking out and them dropping that disconnection policy.
Talk to Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, holler at me. Let's do a podcast, buddy. Come on in here. Let's straighten this whole bullshit out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it, buddy.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, thanks a lot for having me
My
on.
pleasure.
I appreciate it.
I know I said his name about 15 different times. Miscavige. I don't know which one it is. He's a nice gentleman, and it's a. I enjoy talking to him, but it's a sad. I don't know. I'm just a fucking pussy. Just a pussy when it comes to parent-child relations, especially this one. Thanks to my sponsors. Thanks to Caveman Coffee first. Go to cavemancoffeeco.com. Use the code word Rogan and save 10% off of any of their awesome products. Thank you to audible.com/Joe. Go there and get yourself a free audiobook and a 30-day trial. Audible.com/Joe. Thanks to Onnit. Go to ONNIT. Use the code word Rogan and save 10% off any and all supplements. And thank you to LegalZoom. Go to LegalZoom.com and use the code word Rogan at checkout for special savings. All right, we did it. In the interest of full disclosure, I record these ads after the podcast. And in a day like today, I record these ads after I do 2 podcasts. So that's why I'm a little weirded out. So we're gonna finish this one up, and if you're like on a plane or if you're on a road trip or some shit like this next one, there's some moments that are really good, but goddamn, you got to get through some hair pulling. You got to get this. All right, I'm giving it away. We'll see you soon. Hello, friends. Welcome to the show. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Traeger Grills. I cook on a Traeger grill 4 to 5 days a week, and I've been using one long before it was ever a sponsor of the podcast. I love these things. They're fantastic. Traegers are pellet grills, and the way it works is they cut hardwood like hickory or oak or cherry and then take that sawdust and compress it using just the natural sugars of the wood to hold it together. It creates these pellets. You pour the pellets into the hopper in the grill. The hopper feeds the pellets into a worm drive, which connects it to a heating element. And the heating element lights the wood pellets on fire. So you're cooking with just wood and fire. But we'll get to that in a minute. So it gives you the delicious smoky taste, but it's super convenient and easy to use, maintains temperature perfectly, and it comes with a Wi-Fi application. Their Wi-Fi application has 1,500 plus recipes, and you can control the grill from the app. You can shut it off, raise or lower the temperature. It has a meat thermometer, so it tells you what temperature your food is. It's amazing. You can literally cook anything on a Traeger grill. And they have a Black Friday sale, November 20th through the 30th. You get a free ultimate bundle with purchase of any Ironwood grill. It includes pellets, accessories, rubs, sauces, and more. An over $200 value. Also offering $100 off Pro 575 and Pro 780 grills while supplies last. Their wood pellets are all made here in the US of A. They're available online or in 10,000 plus stores nationwide. Visit TraegerGrills.com/Joe and use the code Rogan at checkout for free shipping. We're also brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee Company. Black Rifle Coffee was founded by Evan Hafer after over 20 years in the U.S. Army as an infantryman, special forces soldier, and a CIA contractor. He founded Black Rifle Coffee along with Army Ranger Matt Best as a combination of their two passions, developing premium, fresh roasted coffee and honoring and supporting those who serve on the front lines. Black Rifle Coffee Company has donated over 45,000 pounds of coffee, or over 1 million cups of coffee to soldiers deployed overseas, law enforcement officers, wildland firefighters on the West Coast, and medical workers during the COVID-19 response just in 2020 alone. For every coffee purchase you make throughout November, Black Rifle Coffee will send a bag of our limited edition holiday roast to a service member currently deployed overseas to be delivered by Christmas morning. Being founded and operated by veterans, the team at Black Rifle Coffee Company knows what a quality cup of coffee means to active duty troops spending the holidays away from home. It's an awesome company. I love the people behind it. And if you want to support the cause, go to blackriflecoffee.com/Joe Rogan today and check out the freshest coffee in America. The team has spent thousands of hours tasting, sourcing, and perfecting coffee from all over the world. blackriflecoffee.com/Joe Rogan gets you 20% off coffee, apparel, and gear, as well as 20% off your first month of the coffee club. It's an awesome company, and both Matt Best and Evan Hafer have been on the podcast, and I love those guys. I love the company. They're awesome. Another company I love is the motherfucking Cash App, the #1 app in finance in the known universe, in all of the land and the skies and the heavens. You probably already know, if you listen to this podcast, that the Cash App is the easiest way to send money between your friends and family without having to hold on to that dirty paper cash, that weird paper that's been floating around in circulation. Well, the Cash App is also the very best way to buy Bitcoin. With the Cash App, you can automatically purchase Bitcoin daily